Good afternoon. Welcome back to my channel, Literati. Today I will continue with the analysis of Dr. Faustus. I have analyzed in detail Act 1 and Act 2. Today I will discuss Act 3 and Act 4 together because a lot of the scenes or most of the scenes in Act 3 and Act 4 are not serious scenes in the sense that they deal more with action in a physical sense rather than the deep psychological trauma and perplexity which Dr. Faustus was going through, the spiritual dilemma, the gates of his inner hell, which he has already entered, and which were portrayed with such intensity in Act 1 and Act 2, depicting the tragedy of Faustus, the lack of resolution, the tragedy of his choices, and the damnation which he has imposed upon himself. Faustus had made a pact with the powers of hell, with evil, in exchange of 24 years of unlimited fulfillment of his desires. His desires had soared to the skies. Now, as we see him moving through the time which is allotted to him, the time which he has won for himself, the bargain which he has made with evil, the hollowness of his pact with evil becomes more and more clear. And most of the scenes or most of the exploits of Faustus are like adventure, like a continuous and a feverish voyage and a spirit of restlessness. He has no peace of mind. He is not a tranquil spirit. For the moment, at least, he has pushed back the agonizing thought of his looming damnation and trying his best to avoid his thoughts, trying his best not to be alone with his feelings. He is constantly on the go, traveling from one place to another, seeing new things, enjoying new experiences, as the chorus at the end of Act 2 tells us, again defining a very Renaissance spirit and the feeling which had come in the Renaissance age of a quest for knowledge. But Faustus's dreams of conquering the world or conquering the universe remain just empty dreams. Act 3 has 3 scenes. Act 4 is the longest act in the play. It has 6 scenes. In Act 3, Scene 1 and 2, we find Faustus accompanied by Mephistopheles. Now, Mephistopheles has become his shadow, constantly looming over him. And Faustus will not be left alone even for a moment by Mephistopheles because there are still the possibilities of rebellion in him and the forces of evil, the powers of hell. They do not want to leave Faustus alone so that he does not have any second thoughts. And trying his best to avoid the truth, the reality of his situation, Faustus chooses the path of escapism and he is momentarily trying to turn a blind eye to his damnation which he has chosen for himself. In Act 1 and Act 2, we have already witnessed Faustus like a man who descends from a euphoric, jubilant superhero to a shaky, uncertain, and a cowering man. In Act 3, we find Faustus in the holy city of Rome, the Vatican City. And here in scene 1 and scene 2 of Act 3, we find that Faustus and the other spirits, they play tricks on Pope and the Catholic priests and the ceremonies and the celebration of the feasts. This is a satire not only on the ceremoniousness and the pretentiousness and the ornate and meaningless rituals with which Catholicism had surrounded itself, because England had already broken up. The Church of England was no longer part of the Catholic Church or the Vatican City, and this new found feeling of anti-Catholicism is again displayed in this play in these two scenes when Faustus conjures up spirits, scares the Catholic priests who are in the middle of an elaborate and a meaningless celebration. Faustus is in denial. He is like a driven man, and he is moving from one place to another like a restless soul. Scene 3 also shows Faustus in the same mood, and they carry on these almost boyish, schoolboyish tricks and these scaring the Catholic priests, disturbing them in their formal and elaborate rituals. At the end of scene 3 of Act 3, after again a very crass and a rather crude comic scene between Robin and the other minor characters, the chorus steps in to remark on chorus's journey of life till now. After moving restlessly, continuously, and at a breakneck speed, looking at the different sights and sounds traveling through the air and all these magical events, or rather magical experiences, Faustus returns back home once more. And the fact that he is still enjoying the love of his true friends who mourn his absence, who are worried about him, who miss him, is expressed by chorus. Faustus comes back, they are very happy to see him. But again, Faustus does not stay long. And once more, he is off on his journeys around the world, trying to pack in as much as is possible, because he is also aware of time slipping from his grasp, from his fingers, moment by moment. So see, all the three scenes of Act 3 are to do with action, the physical action, the movements, the exploits, the adventures, the experiences of Faustus. There is no room for meditation, contemplation, reflection, or Faustus facing himself, because he is trying to push his thoughts in the background. He does not want to confront himself. He does not want to acknowledge his deepest fears. So these two acts, Act 3 with its 3 scenes and Act 4 with its 6 scenes, mostly dwell upon the various exploits of Faustus, not any kind of spiritual or intellectual quest as such, not any deep knowledge which he gains or answers to the spiritual questions or dilemma, but just like a man who has a continuous urge to travel from one place to another. And in the meanwhile, the fact that he has magical powers, has uh, uh, the ability to perform extraordinary feats, has made him famous. And the man who had wished to change the world now is almost like a conjurer, a magician. In fact, one of the courtiers, we find him in the court of an emperor among royalty in the first scene of Act 4, uses the word conjurer for him. So, like I said, we find Faustus not as a man who will leave something for posterity, who has managed to change the world, who has achieved the extraordinary, but just a man who has the power to perform some kind of magical tricks. He conjures up a shadowy world of phantoms for the emperor, who had a deep desire to see the physical likeness of the Emperor Alexander. It is almost like a pantomime, and these shadowy figures are as unsubstantial as the dreams which Faustus had dreamt for himself of omnipotence, of eternity, of immortality, because he had wished to be more than a man. He was already a great man, but he wanted to be more than a man. So the emptiness and the hollowness of his bargain, his pact, his understanding with the powers of evil is very, very clear. Now, again, these scenes of Act 3 and Act 4, they serve one more purpose, and that is that they allow a kind of a entertainment value. Because here one thing again is very, very obvious, that the Renaissance drama, English drama, when it came in its own, it adapted itself in a totally individual way. It took the influences of the Greek drama, of the religious drama, and absorbed the Renaissance spirit and created something new. So the fact that these two acts, Act 3 and Act 4, are mostly to do with comic scenes, once more underlines the fact that Renaissance drama, English drama, was pure entertainment. It had its beauty, its deep philosophical and poetic qualities in the best place, but for the most part, it was like the modern day blockbuster movies. It had to be a complete package of the series as well as the comic. So, even in this very sublime tragedy, we have these entire two acts which are devoted to this kind of slapstick comedy. It was a complete package. The English drama of the Renaissance age was a complete package, much like the modern day movies. And another purpose, to allow for the passage of time, to tell the audience about all that Faustus was going through, the various experiences, the way that he was living his life, the way he was making the most of what he had gained by signing away his soul for eternal damnation. That undercurrent is always present. But like I said, these two acts do not allow much room for, or any room, in fact, for reflection, meditation, and introspection. There are just a few lines in Scene 4 of Act 4 when momentarily Faustus is caught unawares and he thinks to himself, but that is very, very brief. For the most time, almost all the scenes of Act 3 and Act 4 deal with this kind of frenzy, the restlessness of Faustus' spirit, his conjuring tricks, the almost ridiculous situations in which he finds himself. On the one hand, he has the adulation of the emperor and the duke, who also invite him, and he performs impossible feats for them. But then those tricks which he performs for them do not have any lasting significance. And Faustus had wished to be something more than a man, leave a legacy. But these years are spent in being fettered across the world and watching new places, new sights, new scenes, and playing tricks which often border on absurdity. So in scene 1, we find him in the emperor's court, conjuring up or creating the fantasy of the phantoms of the Emperor Alexander and his retinue, along with his queen. Some of the courtiers become jealous and they look on Faustus's admiration by the emperor, who the emperor is grateful, as well as he applauds Faustus, he honors him, and they decide to play tricks on him. Faustus in return grows horns on their heads. They decide in scene 3, they try to scare him, but it is Faustus who has the last laugh, and he commands Mephistopheles to not only punish them but also inflict some kind of physical disgrace on them. Also in Act 4, Scene 1, we find Faustus admired by the emperor, hated by the courtiers. In Scene 2 of Act 4, we find they try to ambush him, they try to expose him, they have no love for him, and in fact they are jealous. They try to defile him, and Faustus is ambushed by the jealous courtiers, but Faustus, with the help of Mephistopheles, defeats their sordid plot and commands Mephistopheles to punish them. And then there is a troop of soldiers also who try to capture Faustus and try to disgrace him. But again, it is with the help of Mephistopheles that Faustus emerges victorious. So the man who had thought to himself that he would command invisible armies, he would be the regent of all elements, is now someone who is ambushed by some jealous, angry men, some courtiers, and who, with the help of Mephistopheles, manages to defeat them, throw them into the mud, and all kinds of ridiculous activities. Scene 3 of Act